I'm excited now to welcome our keynote speaker for today's symposium. Mr. Kevin Gallagher is Senior Advisor to U.S. Commerce Secretary Gina Raimondo on issues relating to economic development, broadband, and workforce development. Kevin comes to the Department of Commerce from Providence, Rhode Island, where he most recently served as then Governor Raimondo's Senior Deputy Chief of Staff. Join me in welcoming Mr. Kevin Gallagher. Kevin, I cede the floor to you.
Thank you, Brian, very much. Good afternoon, everyone. On behalf of Commerce Secretary Gina Raimondo, I'm thrilled to be joining you today for the NICE Symposium live from the Commerce Department. The Secretary herself wanted to participate, but is traveling out of the country. So she asked me to fill in for her today, and I'm thrilled to do so. As was mentioned, I'm the Secretary's Senior Advisor, and I spend the vast majority of my time focusing on issues related to workforce development and broadband. I joined the Commerce team around the time the Secretary was confirmed, having spent the prior 6 years working with her as Governor of Rhode Island, and I bring you her greetings and best wishes for a successful symposium. First, let me start by thanking all of the individuals who have put this symposium together this afternoon. In particular, I'd like to acknowledge Rodney Petersen, the Director of NICE within NIST at the Department of Commerce. Rodney is a leader at the department on issues related to cybersecurity and workforce development, and is one of the hardest working, dedicated public servants I know. So thank you, Rodney, for your incredible work on this symposium and for all that you do. Second, I'd like to take a minute to recognize an important milestone that was accomplished yesterday. Less than 24 hours ago, President Biden signed the Bipartisan Infrastructure bill. This bill represents a historic investment in our roads, bridges, ports, public transit, and clean energy future. It also takes the largest step ever contemplated by the federal government to close the digital divide. The Biden-Harris administration has set an ambitious goal of connecting all Americans to reliable, affordable, high-speed internet. The Bipartisan Infrastructure bill the president signed yesterday allocates $65 billion to expand broadband in communities across the United States, create more low-cost broadband service options, subsidize the cost of service for low-income households, and provides funding to address the digital equity and inclusion needs in our communities. This funding could not come at a more critical time. According to the Pew Research Center, 90% of Americans say the internet has been essential or important to them during the pandemic. Yet we know that access to broadband and the internet is not created equal. Tens of millions of Americans lack access to affordable, reliable, high-speed internet services, and the problem is worse in minority and rural communities and on tribal lands. The Department of Commerce will play a pivotal role in rolling out the broadband resources included in this legislation. More than $48 billion of that funding is being allocated to the Commerce Department's National Telecommunications and Information Administration, NTIA. We stand ready in coordination with other federal agencies, including the Departments of Agriculture and Treasury and the FCC, to implement a once-in-a-generation broadband funding program aimed at firmly closing the digital divide by bringing broadband resources directly to the communities that need them most. The vast majority of this funding will go to states to ensure that no American lives in a location without access to high-speed internet. But living in a community where the infrastructure exists doesn't help if you can't afford to access the internet, or you don't have the right devices or skills to make meaningful use of it. Importantly, the Bipartisan Infrastructure deal contains funding for digital equity grants that states, cities, towns, educational institutions, community-based organizations, and other nonprofits can apply for to promote digital inclusion and digital equity for communities that lack the skills, technologies, and support needed to take advantage of broadband connections. The grants will accelerate the adoption of broadband through digital literacy training, workforce development, device access programs, and other digital inclusion measures. Today, I know our focus is on supply chains. The investments in the Bipartisan Infrastructure bill will improve our ports and highways and will help ease some of the congestion that we're seeing that is causing delays in the supply chain. But that isn't all we are doing as an administration. At the Department of Commerce, we know firsthand the importance of the supply chain as it impacts the broader economy and how critical it is to maintain a healthy supply chain ecosystem. To combat the current problems we are experiencing, in June, the administration established a supply chain disruptions task force. Secretary Raimondo, along with the Secretaries of Transportation and Agriculture, have been leading this task force to provide a whole of government response to address near-term supply chain challenges. Secretary Raimondo has been leading on the home building and semiconductor supply chains. We are utilizing data and information tracking to identify and address near-term risks and vulnerabilities more effectively. For example, we brought together stakeholders from across the home building supply chain at a time when lumber prices were at record highs. Today, new capacity is coming online and prices have come down. We're also very active in the area of semiconductors, where a shortage of chips is affecting everything from car prices to the availability of medical equipment. Companies just responded to a request for information on semiconductor supply chains, asking them to tell us about the key bottlenecks, their inventories, and the chips they are ordering so that we can shine a light on what the biggest issues are in that supply chain. In addition, security at all points in the supply chain is a top priority. Organizations manage many different business functions, operations, finance, legal, HR, as part of their overall enterprise, and each of those business functions has associated risks. As technology has become an enabling factor in managing an enterprise, the risks associated with cybersecurity have also become more prominent. As a country, we've seen the domino effect of harm caused by attacks like SolarWinds on US companies and their customers. Building sustainable pipelines to cybersecurity careers is essential to mitigating these risks. The need for a skilled workforce is foundational to building the equitable economic recovery that is at the heart of the president's Build Back Better agenda. And it is a key priority to Secretary Raimondo, as it was to her as governor. As governor of Rhode Island, she launched innovative workforce development programs that develop business-led partnerships that trained and hired Rhode Islanders into open jobs, including cybersecurity jobs. Among all the economic policy areas that the Department of Commerce touches, workforce policy is perhaps most foundational to our success. Right now, job openings have soared to record highs, while the number of job seekers remains 1.7 million above pre-pandemic levels. Far too many of those seeking work are Americans without a college degree, women, and people of color. We must work with companies to create solutions to their workforce challenges that target underserved communities. The labor shortages plus elevated quit rates are exacerbating our supply chain challenges. Commerce has a unique role to play in partnership with our colleagues at the Departments of Labor and Education. First, we recognize that workforce is essential to economic competitiveness. Second, given our relationship with businesses, we can ensure the demands of employers are realized in our workforce development systems. Through the $500 million Good Jobs Challenge, funded by American Rescue Plan funding, Secretary Raimondo has translated the lessons she learned as governor and her philosophy on workforce development to a massive program on a national stage aimed at funding employer-led partnerships that will train and connect underserved Americans to real jobs. But the Good Jobs Challenge is not our only workforce initiative. We have MEP centers, the Manufacturing USA Institutes, multiple Census Bureau programs, Select USA, and of course, NICE. With CHIPS and infrastructure passage, we will be able to further those investments in our workforce. Workforce training and digital skills investments are allowed and critical uses of the new broadband funding. Today, as you all focus on the intersection of these two priority areas, supply chain, cybersecurity, and the workforce, I'd like you to keep in mind a few overarching thoughts. First, the idea of people, process, and technology is commonly used as an approach to benefit supply chain management. The people do the work, the processes make the work more efficient, and technology helps the people do the work. Organizations can achieve efficiency by balancing the three and optimizing the relationships between people, processes, and technology. Second, supply chain risk management cannot be done in a silo. Supply chain risks touch sourcing, vendor management, continuity and quality, transportation security, and many other functions across the enterprise and require a coordinated effort to address. NIST has developed best practices in cybersecurity supply chain risk management that include 3 key principles. First, develop your defenses based on the principle that your systems will be breached. When one starts from the premise that a breach is inevitable, it changes the decision matrix on next steps. The question becomes not just how to prevent a breach, but how to mitigate an attacker's ability to exploit the information they have accessed and how to recover from the breach. Cybersecurity is never just a technology problem. It's a people, processes, and knowledge problem. So second, breaches tend to be less about technology and more about human error. Technology security systems won't secure critical information and intellectual property unless employees throughout the supply chain use secure cybersecurity practices. And finally, security is security. There should be no gap between our physical security and cybersecurity. The last point I'd like to stress is the importance of small businesses. Small businesses are the backbone of our economy, and they face greater cybersecurity risks because they are targeted more frequently. NIST provides resources to help small businesses keep themselves secure. These materials include cybersecurity guidance, solutions, and training that is practical, actionable, and enables small businesses to cost-effectively address and manage their cybersecurity risks. I would encourage you to check them out. I'll end with this. Government cannot solve these problems alone. To ensure the success of our supply chains requires the public and private sector to partner together. Through efforts like these, the NICE Symposium, I know we'll be able to strengthen these partnerships and help prepare, grow, and sustain a workforce that safeguards and promotes America's national security and economic prosperity. Thank you, and I hope you enjoy the incredible content that has been prepared for you this afternoon.